This is an American Council for Immigration Reform special report.
Mr. Cutler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Hostetler, Ranking Member Jackson Lee, members of the subcommittee, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to come before this subcommittee hearing to offer testimony on an issue that is one of the most challenging and important issues our nation faces today. I commend Chairman Hostetler and members of this subcommittee for demonstrating true leadership at a time that our nation is in need of true leadership. The principle by which most responsible and sensible people live their lives can be summed up by the phrase, safety first. Yet this fundamental and common sense approach is clearly lacking among all too many of the senators of our nation. They voted for a bill that utterly ignores the findings and recommendations of the 9/11 Commission at a time when our nation is threatened by acts of terrorism. Nearly every week we read news accounts of suspected terrorists being arrested in countries around the world as well as within the borders of our own country. We see compelling coverage of bombings of trains in Spain, England, and most recently India. One of this country's closest allies, Israel, has been forced to take military action to defend itself against terrorism in the Middle East, and yet inexplicably there are senators and others, including the President of the United States, who insist on pushing forward to implement a guest worker amnesty program that would be utterly disastrous for national security. USCIS is unable to cope with all of its responsibilities as we speak. My fear is that because we are dealing with millions of illegal aliens who, in the parlance of the open borders advocates, are undocumented, that means they have no verifiable means of proving their true identities. This means that if the program were to be enacted under S-2611, that it would be a simple matter for illegal aliens, including terrorists or criminals, to walk into an immigration office along with millions of other illegal aliens and produce a false name and then get an official identity document from our government bureaucrats. These documents would then enable them to circumvent the various no-fly and terror watch lists. They would be able to use these documents as breeder documents, get driver's licenses, social security cards, open bank accounts, even library cards, all the while staying under the radar and obscuring and concealing their true identity. And all of this at a time when the citizens of our country have witnessed an erosion of many of the freedoms that we have come to take for granted in the name of national security. I've heard the President often state that if our nation allowed aliens who simply wanted to work to do so, that law enforcement could then focus on the terrorists. I have to respectfully disagree with this optimistic but extremely naive assessment. A while back, Robert Mueller, the director of the FBI, testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee about his concerns about so-called sleeper agents. As you know, a sleeper agent is a terrorist, spy, or enemy combatant who one way or another succeeds in gaining entry into the United States to carry out an attack or other hostile act against our country. While awaiting his instructions, however, such individuals do whatever they have to do to not call attention to themselves. Many, as we've seen, get low-profile jobs such as driving an ice cream truck, a taxi cab, work in a used car lot, or attend school. Often the job that they take provides them with mobility to move freely among us as they conduct clandestine meetings, surveillance, or other preparatory functions for the day that they're called into action. A few days before a terrorist carries out an attack, he is in fact likely to hide in plain sight by going to his job. If our government makes it that much easier for a terrorist to legally get a job under an assumed identity, then Al-Qaeda should give the people in our government who make this possible the MVP award. The guest worker amnesty program will undoubtedly entice ever-increasing numbers of illegal aliens to head for our country, because this program will convince people throughout the world that in the United States, not only will you be permitted to break the law and get away with it, but that we are actually willing to reward you for breaking the law by even providing you with Social Security benefits when you commit identity theft and use somebody else's Social Security number, even as law enforcement agencies across our country are increasingly turning to asset forfeiture strategies to combat a wide variety of crimes on the city, state, and federal level. Moreover, there's no door that can be shut, so there's no way to keep the millions of more illegal aliens from gaining access to our country. The confidentiality provisions would also hobble efforts by law enforcement officials to make certain that criminal and terrorist aliens have their applications properly scrutinized, inviting more fraud. The avalanche of applications will further erode any effort to restore integrity to the benefit system, meaning that fraud will become even more attractive to criminal and terrorist aliens, further encouraging more of them to seek to enter the United States, making it easier for them to game the system, and then we wind up with a vicious cycle where we have more aliens filing more applications, and quality will continue to erode as more applications are filed. And meanwhile, decent people who file applications for benefits will be put on the back of this line because the overflowing system won't be able to deal with their applications. That was one of the lessons of the 1986 amnesty, in fact. Additionally, a meaningful effort needs to be made not only to deny applications where fraud's involved, but to prosecute people who become involved in fraud and to remove aliens who are identified as being the beneficiaries of fraud applications. Right now, they file an application with little fear of either criminal charges being brought or administrative deportation actions being initiated. So if you consider all of this, and you realize that the Bill of '86 is essentially a reworked version that we're looking at now, it makes no sense to continue along this path. S-2611, at a time that we are in now, facing terrorism, facing growing problems with narcotics and gang activities in the United States, makes no sense, and any kind of an amnesty program must not be considered at this time.
You're a former INS examiner. How difficult would it be to verify that an illegal alien has resided in the United States for a given period of time, say 5 years?
It would be difficult with the resources that are there because, you know, we keep hearing about background checks. A background check is not the same thing as a field investigation. All a background check means is you run fingerprints and a name that the person put on their application. A proper investigation would require agents to go out, knock on doors, show photographs, interview people. It's an arduous task. It might take days per application. If you're dealing with millions of applications and you're dealing with a workforce of a couple of thousand agents, the numbers don't add up. It would take many, many years to even begin to get a handle on it. And meanwhile, with the open borders that we have and with the visa waiver program that we have, we're being inundated by aliens on a daily basis, and we would be getting inundated with applications. In fact, I think in 1986, the original estimate was that there would be about 1 million to 1.5 million aliens applying for amnesty. When the final numbers were in, I believe the actual number of applications that had been approved was more than 3.5 million. It's critical for Congress and for the American people to understand that the Senate bill almost utterly ignores the fact that there even was a 9/11 commission. It's incredible to me.
What can you do to help? First, visit the American Council for Immigration Reform's website at ancir.org. There, you'll find additional information not covered in this video, as well as links to other videos covering additional congressional hearings on the failings of USCIS, as well as transcripts of the full testimony of Michael Maxwell, Rosemary Jenks, and other witnesses who have testified on this issue. Second, pass this information along. Send our web link to your friends and to others who need to be concerned about the major problems facing America's legal immigration system. Third, call the Capitol switchboard at 202-224-3121 and ask to speak with your senators and congressmen. Tell them you want immediate and fundamental reforms to address the problems of fraud and corruption in USCIS and the Department of Homeland Security. Fourth, call radio talk show hosts and encourage them to visit ancir.org to view this video and others, and invite Michael Maxwell, Rosemary Jenks, and other experts you will learn about at ancir.org on the air to discuss our legal immigration crisis and the role of USCIS. Fifth, send letters to the editor of national, regional, and local newspapers regarding America's legal immigration crisis. Refer readers to ancir.org, where they can view this and other videos, read the hearing transcripts, and investigate this issue themselves. Finally, in this dangerous post-9/11 world, our nation is entering into one of the most important presidential election campaigns in its entire history. We must elect a president who is fully committed to overhauling our legal immigration system. It is important that you contact all the candidates' campaign headquarters and ask them how they intend to fix our broken legal immigration system. If they haven't figured it out, refer them to answer.org. You can make a difference.